We will start the meeting of Health, Mental Health, Education Committee. This is May 24th. I'm joined by Councilmember Mitchell Farrell. Seeing we do not yet have a quorum, we are going to skip right to item number 5, which is informational. Oh, wait, before that, there are no public comment cards, but if there's anybody, any member of the public who wants to speak, please fill out a comment card now. Otherwise, seeing that there's no public comment card, we'll move on to item number 5, and if we could have the Department of Aging come on up. Good morning, Laura.
Good morning, council members. My name is Laura Trejo, and I'm the General Manager of the Department of Aging, and I provided a handout for you for your information. I want to start by thanking Councilmember Ryu for joining Mayor Garcetti and Supervisor Solis at the announcement of Purposeful Aging Los Angeles. As we know, the aging population is one of the biggest social transformations of the 21st century. And this transformation requires that we begin the process of adapting our city structures to the needs of the growing older adult population by making them more age-friendly. Our region's older adult population is expected to grow by 50%. It will double in the next 20 years, and the fastest growing segment of that group are those over the age of 80, which is kind of remarkable how we're benefiting from the longevity opportunities of our current society and healthcare system. But how does that affect the city of Los Angeles? I'm going to give you just a couple of examples of how it's affecting us already, the fact that we have over 700,000 older people over the age of 60 residing in our city. It is increasing calls to 911 for non-medical emergencies, which is costing the city millions in those calls. It's represented in the 30% of those killed or severely injured while walking or bicycling that represent youth and older people. They also represent 1/3 of the homeless population, those that are 55 years and older. And that's one of the most rapid growing segments of the homeless population as well. The aging population requires that our public spaces be accessible to those with varying mobility needs. It means walkable sidewalks, safe crosswalks. It's accessible transportation, affordable housing, two very critical elements for the independence of older people. But there's also some really great opportunities. The longevity dividend means that now more people will have the time, the resources, the experience, and the wisdom to pursue new purposes in life. Imagine harnessing those resources to solve some of the city's social problems. Age-friendly environments allow people to stay active, connected, and positively contribute to their communities, economically, socially, and cultural, into late life. Purposeful Aging Los Angeles seeks to prepare the Los Angeles region for a rapidly aging population through innovative and a sustained initiative that unites public, private sector resources, leaderships, ideas, and strategies. Purposeful Aging Los Angeles will improve the lives of older Angelinos of all ages. The goal of Purposeful Aging LA will be to make our region the best place to grow old in the world. By joining the national and worldwide network of age-friendly citizen communities, we will engage in a very structured process to examine and enhance current policies, programs, and infrastructure. Purposeful Aging Los Angeles is a multi-year initiative to create more livable communities for older adults and persons of all ages. We will be focusing on 9 different livability domains, including outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, respect and inclusion, civic participation and employment, communication and information, community support and health services, and emergency preparedness and resilience. We have reached out to partners within the region, including the County of Los Angeles through the Los Angeles County Department of Community and Senior Services, AARP of California, the UCLA Los Angeles Community Academic Partnership for Research and Aging, the USC Leonard Davis School of Gerontology, and the Milken Institute Center for the Future of Aging. But one of the major pieces that is still missing for us, in order to do this well, our participation within the Age-Friendlies initiative, we really need council support to make sure that we can work with your districts to ensure that we're identifying the needs and opportunities of the older adults in your communities, and to also find solutions that are tailored to the constituents that you represent. We're very excited about this opportunity to engage with over 200 communities across the world. And we believe that it's the right thing for Los Angeles at the right time, and look for your support in the initiative.
Thank you, Laura. As you stated, last Wednesday, we were with the mayor and Supervisor Hilton Solis, where the mayor signed his new executive directive, preparing the city of Los Angeles to be age-friendly city. And ARP was also there joining us. I thought it was a great event, and I just wanted to make sure that you came in today, so we could talk about some of the details about making Los Angeles age-friendly, and formally instructing the department on the council side to work towards the goal, as we agree with the mayor on the importance, and the department knows it will need our support to achieve this. And thank you for the great overview of the Age-Friendly Communities Initiative. So you said it's a multi-year
Yes.
Process. So when do you plan to begin implementation, and what's the actual time frame for implementation?
We are hopeful to start July 1. It is a
this year?
5-year. Yes. It is a 5-year process. That's the commitment to the initiative. The first 2 years are engaged in a very extensive needs assessment, and then the subsequent 3 years are the implementation of identified intervention solutions, opportunities in the community. So and then we get reevaluated by World Health and ARP to see whether or not we have made enough progress to continue being part of the network. So it's a fairly consistent process, very structured. And so we will be working with our partners to make sure that we're following the layout as it's established. There's a lot of inclusion, ensuring that older people's voices are really a part of this robust process.
Wow, I mean, you have a lot of goals. 5 years is enough?
It's a huge region, and that's why we reached out to the partners. One of the things that we did, we've been doing a lot of foundational work before we came to all of you. Bringing these very strong partners to the table for me was critical. Making sure that we were working hand in hand with Los Angeles County was critical, because a lot of the supportive institutions and structures that we're going to have to impact are not just city structures, but will also be our sister organizations within the county. The other part is that we also wanted to have a regional approach that understands that families don't necessarily live in very defined geographic areas. And so this allows us to really look at the Los Angeles region, which is right now 1.8 million older people over the age of 60, one of the largest concentrations of older people in the world. So, we're really going to be, I think, a leader internationally and nationally in terms of looking at solutions for addressing the issues of the elderly population.
Yeah, and I think collaboration is key, especially with the county. And I mean, that's the new key word these days,
Yes.
whether it's for senior services or homelessness. And for the first time, we're not just saying the word collaboration, we're really doing it. And as being a former staff, having worked in the county Department of Community and Senior Services,
Yeah.
I think that's just an additional added benefit. So at the end of 5 years, what does our end product look like?
Well, part of the process for the first 2 years will be to identify what are our gaps, what are our needs, what things we need to modify and influence. So I can't tell you right now what we're going to find, because we haven't asked the seniors and we haven't engaged the community to give us that information. So the first 2 years in 2 years, I'll be able to answer that question very specifically. But we know some early things that we need to be doing. We're going to be needing to look at, for example, all of the infrastructure within the city and how it interfaces with older people. So for example, one of the things I was sharing with our head of ITA was, our workforce is aging as a city infrastructure. So that means he's getting a lot more requests for bigger screens for computers, because as people, age, your visual acuity changes. So it's not only affecting labor force, but also how we come in contact with the community. How do we disseminate information? For example, how will we work with 311 to make sure that we educate the public that may be a better call than to calling 911, so that we're redirecting to the right resources so people get the right response. So these are some of the things that we're already thinking about. How will we partner with different city departments? And as the executive director instructs, there are already 14 departments identified, and I can tell you I'm already working with more than 14. There's tremendous interest across city departments in an understanding that this is already happening.
And, we spoke on this before, and if you could, anything to do with the aging population, especially, need for more parks, community centers, senior centers, libraries. I mean, all of that is all interrelated. But two key areas that I'm really concerned about and we spoke, is about fraud, senior fraud issues, and dementia issues.
Yes.
Because, I mean, myself, with my parents being older and with our population living much longer lives, dementia is starting to become more prevalent. And a lot of seniors don't know how to cope, and it comes in with all the conservatorship issues and the difficulty in conservatorship, and it's breaking up families. It's usually the parents usually take care of the kids, and then in the older age they don't. Like my own father, who's starting to have, who had a stroke and starting to have early signs of dementia. It's hard for him to ask his kids, we're all grown now, to ask his kids for help. So it's partially estate planning, it's partially healthcare directives, it's all of these things. So if we could,
And we're very fortunate. As you know, I came from 17 years in mental health, so issues of dementia have been something very, very special to me as a professional. One of the things we've done already in the city, we have separated out, for example, we have unique case management contract with the Alzheimer's Association just to work with family caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and other dementia. Because we understand that providing those services is unique and very, very different than a regular social service case management program. We also work very extensively with Betzetic Legal Services. They are our legal aid provider. And we actually have some great expertise that we've cultivated over the years with them to address the issues that you just mentioned, all the legal concerns that impact on families and seniors in terms of estate planning when cognitive impairment is present. People don't understand just the range of decision-making that is impacted when somebody doesn't have the cognitive skills to be able to make those informed decisions. So I resonate with your issues and very much know that those would be kept at the forefront. All the mental health issues are very important to us in terms of the aging. As you get older, especially since I mentioned the 80-year-olds, the likelihood of a dementing illness actually goes up, the prevalence. And so we're very, very concerned about what is that impact to our community and to our services.
So it's more the education and prevention. If you could start that early, because obviously when you're starting to have early signs of Alzheimer's or dementia, it usually follows with denial. So, and by the time for a family member to get conservatorship, you have to be very impaired, and it's that phase, and that impairment could last anywhere from a month to 10 years. So, and that's the struggle. So, a lot of education and early prevention programs to prepare families when they're much younger. So resources, such as staffing. What's going to be required.
We're evaluating that. It'll be based on the initiatives that we undertake as we roll the whole process out. Also, part of the work that I'm doing is evaluating the ability to partner with other organizations, as we've done already, so that we can kind of share the responsibility of the initiative, and it doesn't just fall to us to execute every aspect of it. Our major partner, AARP, is at the table with us to make sure that we have staff capacity that they can bring to the table, and they have a lot of expertise to bring to the table that they can leverage for us. So staff resources, we will be coming to you and to the mayor as we evolve the understanding of what it is that we as a city need to be responsible and initiate and deliver on. But at the same time, we will be working very, very assertively with our partners to make sure that we're generating other resources from the academic institutions. For example, I'm already looking at how we will harness interns into the city, because they bring tremendous energy and also expertise because they want to get a good grade. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for us to leverage that we really have never looked at as an entire city. How do we utilize the capacity of the universities to support our work?
Great, thank you. And just for the record, Councilmember Joe Buscano joined us earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Councilmember Fred,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These, generational dynamics interest me endlessly. So I'm just sitting here kind of as you're talking, Laura, so 9 of the council members in the city council are Gen X, 6 are baby boomers, and that's all 15 of us.
Wow.
It'll be interesting to see what the coming years will bring.
Gen X, I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, that's you. Or,
Yeah, that's me.
Right? And Joe, so I'm outnumbered here. Because I'm at the tail end of the baby boomers.
Yes.
And so I'm sort of your guinea pig because by 2030, I'll be over 65. It'll be interesting. And I've always known that at least in my little subgroup of baby boomers, I think we think very differently. And so this whole sort of purposeful aging is, I like the coined term because aging means something entirely different, excuse me, for me and my friends.
Yes, right.
Just entirely different. Like there's kind of no slowing down yet until physically we're just like stopped because we can't any longer. So it'll be interesting to see how that manifests itself in the types of programs that the city needs to support and get behind.
Yeah.
And then the generation after the millennials is Gen Z, Generation Z, it's been coined. I've done some research on that. So it'll be interesting to see in the next 10 years how that expresses itself. And when we do have interns who are in the Z generation, what the differences will be in terms of approach and outlook from even the millennials, right? Each brings different
we're
dynamics.
excited by those opportunities, especially with millennials and others that are younger, because their definition of old is usually like 25 or 30. And they say, at 30, that's aging until they actually meet older people.
Right.
And then they realize that, in your 70s and 80s, you could be a remarkable person contributing greatly. And so I think part of our thinking has been, how will we communicate? What is the language that we're going to need to use with the younger generations? Because we really want this to be an inclusive initiative, because we are all aging. That is a certainty if we're alive.
If we're lucky.
Yes, if you're very lucky. And so we want to include them because I think they're part also of the solutions that we need to look at. And just like harnessing older people and their great capacity to be of service, we want to make sure that we're looking not just at needs, but also what is it that people bring to the table.
Right.
So we want this to be a two-way street in terms of opportunity.
So in terms of these generational dynamics, I think on the one hand, they're very important just for data purposes and to understand our society better.
Yes.
On the other hand, they're also overblown at times because there are definitely subtle differences amongst all generations, but the whole human condition remains the same no matter what the age. So I just want to draw that up. But I have a question,
Yes.
and that is, in terms of this purposeful aging process here, have we mapped out, or will we map out? As you know, I'm a big fan of senior centers, and I intend on creating more while I'm
Great.
in office. But have we mapped out where the greatest need is so we can look at sort of zones where there's a lack of senior services, where a creation of a center would actually make a lot of sense? I mean, what I do, my process is I look to leverage resources to make them, to help get them off the ground, create them, and then the funding sources, et cetera. And so it's more of an ad hoc approach. Now, that approach will work just fine, but it would be nice to focus in on where the greatest need for a senior center is as our population ages, so that we can be a little more scientific in our approach.
We will be doing some resource mapping very clearly, because it's not only related across all the livability domains that I mentioned. We will be doing those types of reports. For example, one of the things I envision is we're actually going to be able to generate reports across 8 of the 9 livability domains by zip code.
Perfect.
Which is the first time we'll have that kind of information that we'll be able to share with council offices, because that will also inform you as policy makers. So we do want to do the really an evaluation of concentration, because we're having all over the county and the city in particular what is called naturally occurring retirement communities, where people are aging in place, and that challenges us to think differently about service delivery options. For example, there's a model I'm looking at very, very closely. It's called the village model, which is really looking at how do you create opportunities where people are living for support and services to come to them, as opposed to them having to find us. That doesn't always require buildings.
Right.
So we have to think differently, because if we're not going to have lots of new building, you and I have discussed this at length in terms of, available space in particular geographic areas, we need to think out of the box about how will we create services and opportunities without necessarily having walls. And we're challenging that right now. Even in one of our service area, we're kind of tinkering, creating a senior center without walls concept, where the staff rotate all over the place and are very available to seniors in a much bigger footprint. So I am looking at how naturally occurring retirement communities and concentrations of seniors will have to be something we strategically look at very differently in how we distribute resources.
Right, and lastly, one of my areas of concern, we've talked about this a lot, is that there is a certain percentage of the aging population that begin self-isolating. And so anything we can do to keep seniors from becoming shut-ins, because that really is an issue in the senior population. As we age in place, that can be a real issue. So,
Just so you know, we actually are looking at, for example, one of the populations we already know is there are our home-delivered meals clients, which are very isolated. And one of the things that we're looking at is what are the possibilities of at least maybe once a week or twice a week over time, bringing them into our centers.
Right.
So that they can have the socialization and access to the resources there. Our hope is that over time, they would like it and want to come more often rather than staying at home all by themselves. That's a population that, we're looking at very, very methodically. We're actually working with Dr. Maria Aranda and Dr. Catherine Sarkeesian at USC and UCLA, respectively, to help us understand what types of interventions we could offer when we bring them, because they're very, very frail older adults, but we're also seeing tremendous gains. When they do come to these structured programs, people actually get better. Yeah. And so we've had people coming in wheelchairs that now have been in this committee, and you would not be able to tell them from anyone else, because they're no longer needing any kind of an aid to be mobile. And that's because they're very active in the center and the resources that are offered there. So our hope is we've now been doing that kind of in pilots to test the models, and we're now very excited that we're seeing some tremendous opportunity to return mobility and functionality to some of our clients.
Right, so one of the future resources may be vehicles,
Yes.
transport vehicles, and so beginning to think way in advance of budget allocations.
Yes, we will.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Laurel, thank you for the wonderful presentation. And, seniors are a great resource. And, in my district, we're looking forward to the aging population contributing as well. A lot of them are volunteers, have a huge knowledge base, experience, and we're trying to figure out how to best harness that, because everywhere I go, they want to help.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
You.
If we could go back to items 1, 2, and 3.
I'm sorry, what action are you taking on this item?
I'm sorry. Oh, right. I apologize. I'd like to approve this motion, but amend it to ask that the department provide a semi-annual report on progress for this initiative. That's okay? Okay. So moved?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
No objections.
No objections. Thank you. So, members, if we go back to the beginning of the agenda, and if there's no objections, I'd like to take items 1, 2, and 3 on consent.
No objections. Move the items.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Fiscano. No objections. And item 4 is Eric Gordon on his way? On his way? Okay. So item number 4, LA's Best, the CEO, President Eric Gordon, I think he got the date wrong, but I believe he is on his way. But just to give you a quick update on what that is, the City Council, we passed a resolution just a couple of weeks ago supporting LA's Best and all after-school programs, right? To ask the governor and the Assembly and the Senate to pass a bill to fund, since 2006, programs like LA's Best and throughout the state of California they've been flat funded. No adjustments for COLA, no adjustments for minimum wage increases. So they've been struggling. And this year they're asking for, and here he is, and I'll have Eric Gurna speak for himself. Thank you for joining us. I was just giving a quick overview of the situation and how you guys have been flat funded since 2006. Now, thank you for joining us, and if you want to give us a little presentation?
Thank you, and I apologize for being late. My excuse is that my assistant is on maternity leave, and apparently I'm terribly dependent.
That works.
So,
Plus, you're not very late at all. Your timing's good.
oh, good, good. I do have handouts. I don't know if it's helpful to give them out now. So I will attempt to be brief and concise so I don't take up too much of your time, and happy to answer any questions that anybody has. So what I want to do is give an update of where we stand with the advocacy for the state funding for after school. And I want to start by just saying how grateful we are that the council passed the resolution in support of that increase at the state level. Councilmember Rue, thank you for authoring that resolution, and to the entire committee and council, thank you for passing it. It actually helped us quite a bit because, as you see in the first couple of pages, we were able to really leverage the attention that was paid, the support given by council and the city of LA to quite a bit of media coverage. I didn't give you the full media packet, but just a summary in those first couple of pages. A photograph of some very good-looking people on the front, and then just a summary on the backside of that page. I did want to give you the LA Times article because that was sort of the biggest, the highest profile piece that came out of that. The next thing there in your packet was actually published prior to the March 18th event here at City Hall, and that was an op-ed published almost simultaneously in the Daily News and La Opinion, authored by myself and LAUSD School Board President Steve Zimmer. The latest update on the media coverage is that we are currently shopping around an op-ed authored by LA Clipper Chris Paul and Renata Simrel, CEO of the LA 84 Foundation, which is the major funder of youth sports in Los Angeles, including to Beyond the Bell and LA's Best for elementary and middle school sports. So they co-authored an op-ed, and we're trying to get it published now. You also have in there sort of a current, our most up-to-date press statement, and some more recent information that has come out since the March 18th event around the state of the field across the state. So the Partnership for Children and Youth out of Oakland did a pretty comprehensive survey of the field and found some pretty, harrowing information around those programs who've been affected by the flat funding, and even, close to a third of programs who believe they're likely to close in the next 2 years without any kind of increase. So to give you a quick update on the legislative and budget process, as you know, we're less than a month away from a final fiscal year 17 budget. The legislature must pass a budget by a majority vote no later than June 15th, and then the governor has until the end of the month to sign, although it'll probably be sooner than that if history is a guide. The Senate budget subcommittees have completed their work. The Education Subcommittee approved a cost of living adjustment for ACES, but did not include a dollar amount for the fiscal year 17 budget. So it's sort of not as much support as we had hoped from the Senate, although last year we did have an increase that went all the way through to the final legislative budget, and that came out of the Assembly, not the Senate. So we believe and hope that the Senate is expecting the Assembly to include the increase in their budget. The Assembly budget subcommittees are actually expected to finish their work today, and we are on the agenda for 3 o'clock today. So this is quite timely. I almost wish that I was here tomorrow. I'd be able to give you more accurate news. Our hope is that they will include the full $73 million in the budget, and we would be happy if they include, something close to that. Last year, after negotiation, it ended up being $25 million. That's not nearly enough at this point, given what's happened in the past year with the wage increases, but at least it would be something. It would be some progress. The two houses should pass their respective budget by Friday and send the two competing versions to a budget conference committee, which should start as early as next Tuesday. It's expected they'll meet next week and maybe through the following week, depending on how much they have to do. And we anticipate that they will approve a compromise augmentation, which means that our final push is really to the governor to sustain that augmentation, and to the legislative leadership to sort of resist any cuts that the governor tries to make and prioritize the increase that they do include. As such, the providers and advocates across the state have really accelerated access or outreach to the governor. On the legislative side, our current bill, which the resolution supported, 2663, authored by Assemblyman Jim Cooper, is currently in the suspense file on the Assembly Appropriations Committee. Suspense is where all bills that have any kind of fiscal impact go until they're heard, and suspense will be taken up at the end of the month, the end of the week, May 27th. So we know that if the committee moves the bill off suspense, that they'll strip it of any budgetary impact, because the legislature does not ultimately approve budget items in bills. However, we're urging the committee to move the bill with the statutory requirement for a COLA, a cost of living adjustment, so that we get the COLA, but also so that we keep the bill alive as a potential vehicle if we don't get the increase we need. Because the other aspect of this is, where can we change the legislative mandates to be able to find significant cost savings? And that would be, very much second to the increase, because legislative changes that would allow cost savings would ultimately be cuts to services. Whether that's significant cuts to hours, whether it's cuts to individual slots or cuts to whole schools, the legislative changes would be a negative impact on families and communities. The one other update that I want to give you is that, while LA has been a leader in this advocacy, we've been working alongside partners from across the state. On May 9th and 10th, there was the California After School and Summer Challenge, which was a big advocacy day up at the Capitol with a big rally. It was, according to the National After School Association, it was the largest after-school advocacy event to date nationally. We had Tony Thurmond, Holly Mitchell, the superintendent of schools from Sacramento, the police chief from Citrus Heights, and then program providers and advocates speak. We got a fair amount of media, although we were a bit overshadowed in the media that day because Bernie Sanders happened to be in Sacramento as well. But we did get a fair amount of media from that, and we're tallying up the numbers now on legislative visits and attendees. But the point is that there was really widespread support from across the state shown that day. LA's Best and Beyond the Bell at LAUSD, we're sort of at the forefront of this because, as Steve Zimmer puts it, the district has chosen to lead on the minimum wage, which means that as of July 1st of this year, we're paying $15 an hour minimum in the district, and other wage categories go up accordingly. Steve Zimmer spent an entire day with me a couple weeks ago in the Capitol doing meetings on just this issue. We met with Speaker Rendon, we met with Senate Pro Tem staff, we met with Budget Committee Chair Ting, and others. So it really shows the support of the school district in this. I mean, you don't see a lot of school board presidents out in front of this. And I appreciate it, and we're grateful, but we also believe that it's right and fair, because if the district is going to lead on increasing wages, they've got to lead on pressuring the state to keep funding up at a fair level with those wages. So we're grateful to the council, we're grateful to the school board, and especially Council President Steve Zimmer for all of the support. And it's really coming down to sort of a three-person show, Kevin De Leon, Anthony Rendon, and Jerry Brown. Probably should have said their titles. Governor Brown. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Eric. And, they could share impacts on your district if you wanted to get that information. And just to give another update, I did speak with our friends up in the state, Speaker Rendon, as well as Assemblymember Phil Ting, who's the chair of budgets. And it looks like, I wished we did this tomorrow because we would have a more better figure, but it looks like they're going to try to include it in the assembly budget, which is good news. However, that's only 1/3 of the way, as Eric stated. We need to make sure we talk. Good thing is on the Senate side, Pro Temp Kevin De Leon is from LA. Mark Leno is the senator on budget. He's up north. But maybe we should give them a call or write to them to ask for their support. So thank you for that. I don't know if members have any questions.
I do, if I can, Mr. Chair. Eric, thank you so much for your dedication and commitment to serving our kids specifically during the after-school hours. As I well know, during my years as a police officer, between the hours of 3 and 6 are the most impactful hours for our students. Obviously, they can turn to crime, they can turn to a number of other issues that may get them in trouble. So those hours are sacred after school. So I really appreciate, and my relationship with the LA Harbor Boys and Girls Club is strong, and I know that they heavily rely on your programming. With that said, and I appreciate the update. Looking forward to hearing more as to the outcome of tomorrow's hearing, right? Is that what you mentioned? I'm sorry, today's hearing at 3, you mentioned. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership. I know we have some friends in Sacramento, as you mentioned, and we really need to heavily rely on them and lean on them to ensure that this funding moves forward. A question that I had, as I mentioned, the importance of after-school hours. Summer hours are also important to me in our relationship with our schools. I remember as a kid growing up, we had our local schools to go to during summer hours. I mean, walking to Leland Street, Mom packed the lunch, and we'd have movie days, caroms, kickball tournaments at Leland Street Elementary School, right up the street, and then later we head down to, years pass, and we head down to Dana Middle School during summer school. Not summer school, but during summer days, and amazing impact, and had stuff to do, right? Kept us busy. What's the relationship, or what's the LA's best goal to identify services and programming during summer days?
Thank you for the question, because summer is incredibly important. We are currently only have the resources to serve about a fourth to a third of the number of students that we serve all year in the summer. So, throughout the school year, we serve over 25,000 kids every day in 194 schools. This summer, we'll be serving between 6,000 and 7,000 in, I believe it's 70 schools or so. And that's just based on primarily our state funding. The state funding actually really wasn't focused on covering summer, but it was sort of grandfathered in from the days of year-round schools. Mm-hmm. And so we are actively looking for funds to be able to increase our summer program. And there's a few reasons for it. One is the most basic safety of our kids that you were talking about. There's really strong research on summer learning loss, that kids from economically poor backgrounds tend to fall behind a little bit in summer. Middle class and above kids tend to actually move ahead a little bit in summer. Mm-hmm. And so that achievement gap or opportunity gap grows bigger and bigger every summer that passes. It's also an opportunity for nutrition. We give, in our after-school program, we provide every kid every day with a nutritious supper. Used to be a snack, now it's supper. Mm-hmm. And in the summer, we're a summer lunch site. Without that, a lot of kids wouldn't have that same access to nutrition. And there's some interesting, more recent research around health and fitness and the importance of summer in obesity prevention and keeping kids active and that sort of thing, which is obviously connected to nutrition, but it's also about being active, being physically active.
And as far as coordination efforts,
yeah.
and I'm sorry, Eric, if I may, as far as the coordination efforts with the city, are we looking at finding ways to extend and open more opportunities for joint use, opportunities between, say, the Department of Recreation and Parks and our schools and LA Best?
I think that there's some real potential there. I did meet recently with Department of Parks and Rec, and we were talking about sort of their plan to get more access to parks through partnership with the district. I haven't talked to LAUSD about that in terms of a potential role for LA's Best in that. I think it's a real potential for summer is a place that the city could have a lot of impact. And actually, I spoke with the mayor and his team about that this year.
I believe even the mayor mentioned it during the State of the City address, of looking at increasing our joint use opportunities between the city and the schools.
And when I met with him, I spoke with him about the opportunity of the city funding being able to increase to cover new summer programs.
Okay.
Because the need is definitely there, the demand is there. We already have, we're a partnership of the school district. So our operations office is a district office. So we have the access. We could greatly expand our summer program. And the other thing about it is that the city funding has tended to go up and down a little bit, frankly down over the years as a whole. But summer is a place where, if funding needed to go up and down a little bit from year to year based on the economy and the capacity of the city, it's possible for us to maintain that. It can go up and down a little bit without being as extreme an impact on students as if the after-school funds go up and down.
And
because parents count on that so much.
What's your take on the school district's commitment to funding programming during summer days?
It's hard for me to comment on that, actually, because I don't know what Superintendent King's vision is when it comes to summer. I know that we not only are in the LAUSD schools and of the district, but we also partner with other existing summer programming for our summer programs. And what that looks like on the ground is they have a morning program, Ready, Set, Go, which is a before-school program. They also run summer programs. And so in schools where we have Ready, Set, Go and LA's Best is also operating, we'll take up right where they leave off. So there's a seamless transition for the kids, a safe and seamless transition. And also, the hard part for parents is this piecemeal sort of ecology of programming where you have gaps in the day and you've got to pick up your kid and drop her off somewhere else. When we can provide the goal is to provide a whole work day because the value of this, the kids, the research shows, but the value to parents is a huge economic value for allowing working parents who the minimum wage, increase is focused at to be able to keep those jobs by having the not just childcare, but enrichment and education opportunities for their kids. So my feeling is that the district is definitely committed to these same values. They're in a very difficult situation in making decisions about how to prioritize local control funding formula dollars. And, LA's Best and other summer programs in the city and county of LA are definitely serving the children who LCFF is targeted at. But whether or not we're first in line for those dollars is something else. So depending on how it falls out with our state funding increase, we're going to be more or less aggressive around being at the table for the decisions around LCFF and the LCAP. But we believe that in order for this to really be sustained over the long haul, we're not going to be able to keep going to Sacramento every year for an increase. We've got to be in the fabric of the district's priorities for both after school and summer.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, Eric. I know LA's Best has a strong presence in my district, and just on behalf of my residents and the students that you serve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, good to see you.
You too.
Let's not kid ourselves. The bureaucracy at LAUSD does not want to do joint use agreements any longer. It's just a fact. And I know that from personal experience, professional experience, and negotiating with them. It's the bureaucracy. It's not the parents, it's not the teachers, it's not necessarily the principals, it's certainly not the kids. One of the qualifications that this committee and this council urged in the process to identify the new superintendent was make sure that the new superintendent has a value that believes that our schools are community centers, because we need to get children on to the campus outside of school hours for recreational activities. LAUSD has a policy of actually shortening or getting rid of joint use agreement contracts entirely. That's the reality. So if I may be so bold as to suggest that you when you meet with them, just be armed with that reality of the situation. We're having to work like the devil with one school for us to actually pay for the refurbishment of a joint use synthetic field. But the agreement ended up in a reduction of the number of years that the joint use agreement would sustain itself. So they need a sea change in that bureaucracy on joint use and our schools as community centers. I've spoken at length with Steve Zimmer, with Ref Rodriguez. They are two board members that I work with a lot in the district that I have. Everyone's on board with the LAUSD bureaucracy being more in line with what everyone wants, but maybe it's their legal counsel, I'm not sure what it is, but just know that that's how it is, and they need to evolve into a more enlightened approach. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, joint use was, the belief at LAUSD was stronger than it is now. So they're in retrograde, and they need to change that because we're all on board, we're ready, Rec and Parks is ready to engage in additional joint use agreements. So that's just something really, really important.
If I could just comment a little bit on
Sure.
a potential value that LA's Best could have there. Because, LA's Best is a very unique partnership. I have never seen anything like it across the country, where we are a nonprofit that's housed in the mayor's office, that's part of the mayor's office. We're also a division of the school district. So our over 2,000 employees, and even our chief operating officer, they are district employees, and we work in constant partnership. And so, honestly, we don't have to deal with the joint use stuff very much ourselves because we're part of the district. But I think we could play a real role in the bridge between the city and the school district.
And that's essentially what I would
Yeah.
love to see.
And, it often comes down to working with, people at the school level who can really make things happen. So, for example, when Mike Scholl, did I get his name right? I'm just blanking on his name.
General Manager, Rec and Parks, Mike.
Yes.
Scholl.
When Mike Scholl and I met, we were talking about this initiative, and I suggested one school in particular where the principal has a bold vision, where he's very involved in the community, where he really is very open to community partnerships and sees his school as a public asset, not his property. And so I made that introduction. And now it reminds me I need to check on it and see where it's gone. But we have dozens and dozens of school communities where we have deep trust, long-standing relationships where a site coordinator has been there for 10 years or more, working as a sort of after-hours supervisor of the school. I was going to say principal, but probably politically that's a little bit shaky. Our site coordinators are not principals, but they are youth work professionals. And we have, not in every school, we're still working in a lot of the schools, but in dozens and dozens of schools, situations that are very ripe for that sort of thing. An example of that is we've been able to install native gardens on dozens of school campuses. And that requires us to go in, sometimes jack up blacktop, sometimes tear up turf.
I've been there, done that along with
we opened one together on Earth Day last year.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do in a situation where there's territorialness, where there's maybe overly conservative concerns about liabilities. So we can really play that role of that bridge, and we would be happy to, because we want to go beyond just serving kids from 3 to 6 in the after-school hours. We're part of this community school movement, and we think we can be a catalyst. So please invite me to any conversations you want. Me and my team, both at the operations level and here in City Hall, would be happy to help with that.
Right. We just need them to land on a policy where they encourage and accept joint use, and the contracts aren't being shortened, they're being lengthened. Because their policy right now, their official policy, is not that.
I'm meeting with Superintendent King next month,
Great.
and I will definitely put that as a priority on our agenda to talk about.
Thank you, Councilman O'Farrell. And actually, President Steve Zimmer will be here next month
Very
to
good.
have a discussion with us.
Great.
And so will the superintendent. We'll schedule her as well. I was able to meet with her yesterday. Thank you so much, Eric. And again, colleagues, the Assembly budget hearing will be at 3 o'clock. If you, we could call all our friends and give you an update. And we could work out letters of support for the Senate side as well as the governor's side. And Eric
I will send
could
that
provide
information.
any kind of information about impacts on any assembly or senator or city council districts. So any information you need, you could contact Eric directly or contact my office. And for this, if I could continue this item, so maybe after budget, so we could get a final recap and synopsis and the impacts of what happened at the
That would be
state.
great. Thank you for your
So
time.
we'll continue this item. No objections?
No objections.
And thank you. And we could be part of the on-time caucus, so we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.